The story of Okiku's ghost, also known as the ghost of the dish, is one of the most chilling legends in Japan. It is said that Okiku was a beautiful maid working in an ancient castle. She was tasked with taking care of a precious collection of dishes, including a special set of 9 plates. However, one day she was falsely accused of stealing the 10th plate, a crime she did not commit. After being tortured and humiliated, she was brutally murdered. But Okiku's death was not the end. Her soul could not rest, haunted by the dish and the unresolved injustice. Every night, Okiku's ghost would appear, murmuring as she counted the 9 dishes, and when she reached the 10th, her cries echoed in the darkness. Can anyone free Okiku's soul, or will she forever be trapped in the cycle of pain and revenge? The 10th plate and a resentment that cannot be quelled. Before becoming a ghost, Okiku was a beautiful and talented maid, with a sharp intellect and a heart dedicated to her work. She was hardworking, always striving to do her best in serving the noble family she worked for. The house she served in was an ancient castle, holding within it stories and mysteries that not everyone knew. Despite being a maid, Okiku was treated well and always trusted by the family. Okiku's primary task was to care for the family's precious collection of dishes. Among them was a very special set, made from exquisite porcelain, with 9 unique cups, each of immense value. This set was not only a valuable asset, but also a source of pride for the family, an important part of their heritage. Okiku, with her careful attention to detail, always kept the collection in perfect condition, ensuring that no piece was damaged. But this piece did not last long. One day, an unexpected accident occurred, changing everything forever. While Okiku was performing her duties, one of the valuable cups from the set suddenly went missing. Only 8 cups remained, and no one knew how the 9th cup had disappeared. The family's master was furious and suspicious of Okiku. They believed she had stolen the cup and refused to confess. Okiku insisted she was innocent, but her words were not believed. The suspicion and conflicts within the family gradually pushed her into a desperate situation. Wrongfully accused, she was tortured physically and threatened with death. A brutal attack ended her life, and from that moment on, Okiku's soul could not find peace, lingering with the resentment and injustice that had never been resolved. The story of Okiku begins here, with an unforgettable tragedy, serving as a warning about betrayal and the lingering burden of an unjust wrong. On a quiet morning, as the soft sunlight filtered through the old wooden doors of the castle, a terrifying event occurred. One of the precious cups from the collection went missing. The dish collection was an immensely valuable possession of the family, consisting of 9 exquisite porcelain cups, each worth an enormous amount. However, no one knew how the 10th cup had disappeared, and when the family discovered the loss, they immediately became suspicious of Okiku, the loyal maid they had once trusted. Okiku couldn't understand what was happening. She knew she had done nothing wrong and hadn't stolen the cup, but rumors quickly spread within the family. Though she knelt and begged for forgiveness, insisting on her innocence, her masters didn't believe her. They accused her of stealing the precious cup and began scolding her, torturing her with harsh criticisms. The emotional and physical abuse made Okiku feel like she couldn't bear it anymore. But no matter how much she tried to explain, it was all in vain. She couldn't prove her innocence. The pain, the despair, and the unresolved injustice gradually plunged Okiku into a dark state. She was locked away in a room, forbidden to speak to anyone, with no chance to reveal the truth. She felt as if the whole world had turned its back on her, leaving her in unspeakable suffering. Long, restless nights passed, each one a mental torment. One pitch-black night, when everything in the castle seemed to fall into absolute silence, Okiku was brought before the family. The people who had once loved her no longer looked at her with trust. She was wrongfully accused, and in an unforgettable moment, a ruthless decision was made. Okiku was killed coldly and savagely with no chance to defend herself. Okiku's death was not just the end of a poor maid's life, but the beginning of an indelible, bloody tragedy. Her spirit could not find peace, trapped in pain and resentment. From that moment on, the legend of Okiku, the ghost of the dish, was born, carrying with it suffering, revenge, and a warning about injustice and the unresolved wrongs that can never be overcome. Okiku's death was not an end, but the beginning of an unending chain of hauntings. After being brutally murdered, her soul could not find peace. Unlike other spirits, Okiku did not find rest. Instead, she wandered through the castle where she had worked, the very place where the injustice had ended her life. Night after night, she couldn't leave, trapped in the house that had witnessed her pain and brutal death. Okiku's soul could not forget the 10th cup, the cup she never found. Despite her best efforts to serve the family, that cup became an unrelenting obsession. Every night she would appear in the darkness, quietly counting the 9 cups in the precious collection she had cared for. The cups, though not hers, were tied to the unjust fate she endured. Each time she counted, she had to stop at the 9th cup and feel the emptiness of the 10th cup that she could never find. But what was even more terrifying was when she reached the 10th cup. When she counted to the 10th, her heart-wrenching cries would echo through the night. Those cries, filled with despair and resentment, were like a plea for help from the deepest part of her soul. Every night, Okiku could not escape this torment, unable to forget what had happened to her. Her cries reverberated throughout the castle, a warning for anyone who dared to come too close. Her soul could not move on because the resentment and despair were too great. Okiku was never forgiven, and so she remained forever caught in the cycle of suffering. Each night as darkness fell, the castle would become cold and eerie as Okiku's cries still echoed somewhere, reminding everyone of the injustice and suffering she had endured. Thus, Okiku's soul remained forever trapped in the darkness, never finding release, and her story became an unforgettable haunting in the hearts of the living. The ancient castle where Okiku once lived was not just an abandoned place. It was the setting of a sorrowful and mysterious tale that the locals still whispered about. Those who dared to be curious, those who dared to challenge fate and enter the castle at night, often had to face something strange, something they would never forget. One night, a group of people decided to verify the story of Okiku, determined to uncover the truth behind the rumors. As they entered the castle, a chilling coldness surrounded them, and every sound seemed swallowed by the terrifying silence. Each step they took on the old, creaky floor echoed clearly in the darkness, and they could feel that something was wrong. As they ventured deeper into the castle, the sound of soft footsteps began to echo from somewhere. These footsteps didn't belong to a human. They were quiet, rhythmic, as if someone was following them, but they couldn't see anyone. The strange sensation only pushed them deeper into the dark room ahead. Suddenly, a faint figure appeared before them. It was a woman dressed in a white gown, standing motionless in the darkness. Her face was blurred, unclear, but her eyes shone brightly, filled with sorrow and despair. Those eyes never blinked, as if staring directly at them, and the gaze seemed to draw them in, unable to break free. Okiku's heart-wrenching cries echoed in the stillness, full of pain. She said nothing, but her lips seemed to murmur as she counted the cups in the collection she could never find. She counted from the 1st cup to the 9th. But when she reached the 10th, her cries grew even more sorrowful. It seemed that she could never forget the cup she had been falsely accused of stealing, and her resentment rang out in those sounds, filling anyone who heard them with an inescapable sense of despair. The group couldn't stand any longer. They turned and hurriedly fled from the castle. But the image of Okiku with her sorrowful eyes haunted them forever. Encounters with Okiku's spirit were not mere fantasy, but a terrifying reality that anyone who dared face it would never forget. Her soul remained unable to rest, wandering, counting the cups she had lost, in the endless anguish and resentment that could never be soothed. One night, as the moon sank into a dark cloud and the shadows enveloped the castle. A man, feeling the endless pain of Okiku, decided to do what no one else dared to. He had heard the stories of her ghost, of the cries that echoed through the castle night after night, and his heart was filled with compassion. He couldn't let Okiku remain trapped in resentment forever. He came before the ancient grave where her spirit wandered and lit a small incense stick, praying for her soul's forgiveness. The tiny flame flickered in the darkness, casting a weak light on his face, and the surrounding air became heavy and still. He knelt down, filled with reverence, and began to pray. Okiku, I pray for you, that you may rest in peace, no longer suffering from pain and resentment. Please forgive those who harmed you and release your soul from this endless cycle. As he prayed, Okiku's heartbreaking cries gradually faded as if she had heard his words. An extraordinary silence filled the space, and then from the darkness, Okiku's figure slowly disappeared. She was no longer standing there with eyes full of hatred, but instead, a peaceful serenity surrounded her spirit. Okiku's soul was finally freed, no longer wandering in suffering and resentment. The man's plea had helped her find the peace she should have had long ago. From that moment on, Bayona no longer appeared. Her soul had been set free, no longer wandering in the castle, and her heart-wrenching cries no longer echoed in the darkness. Her story lived on in the hearts of the people, serving as a reminder of sorrow, resentment, and the power of forgiveness. Sometimes, with just a bit of compassion and a sincere prayer, even the trapped souls can find peace and escape from the pain that has bound them for so long.